before we continue with our discussion, let's take a quick look at another viewer's question we received. It came from Mike in Milnerton, and he asks us the question, I've recently started a new job which offers a pension and provident fund. What should I do with my existing RA? Now, I think just quickly here, I don't think there's too many companies are going to have a pension and a provident fund, but certainly if I'm going to go for either or, what are the suggestions from your side, Harry, that Mike should be having a look at here?
Well, again, I mean, the first issue is, as we discussed earlier, and with an RA, you can only deduct a certain amount of non-retirement funding income. Now, the minute he makes a choice and goes either onto a pension or a provident fund, his income becomes retirement funding. And that could mean that a large contribution that he's putting into the RA already would become not tax deductible. So he needs to sit down with his tax expert or his financial advisor and see, is his current contribution to the RA going to be tax deductible? If not, does he want to carry on at that current level? Does he want to put the excess somewhere else? And what does he want to do? So that's number one. Number two, on the tax side, and Andrew will probably know more on the regulatory side, but on the tax side, pension and provident, there's not a huge difference. There's only small differences, of course, for a pension fund. Employee contributions are deductible up to a very small amount, 7.5% of retirement funding income, whereas on the provident fund, there's no employee tax deduction. So there's a small tax difference there, normally not huge because normally the employer pays by way of salary sacrifice anyway.
Sure. So in effect, the net effect is that do get some, that's the same
Correct.
net tax break, so to speak.
Correct, but the issue is going to be on that RA because it might not be tax efficient anymore to carry on the current level.
To carry
and again, I'll get into trouble there. I don't know his exact affairs and what he could have lots of other income.
Sure, absolutely.
But if it's pure salaried income, then it might not be tax efficient.
Yeah, okay. Andrew, obviously, the other thing that comes into it is the pension fund rules, whether it's compulsory to be a part of that pension fund or not. Does that come into it?
Yes, that certainly would, although generally if a company has a fund, it will be compulsory to participate, and that's generally because without that, they don't get the tax breaks that they would otherwise enjoy. So everyone does have to belong generally if there is a fund in place. Okay. The reason why there might be a pension and provident is really a historical issue where companies did often have both, and half of the contribution went into the pension fund and the other half went into the provident, and it was related to that tax deductibility, which has since fallen away largely. So largely there's no reason to have two anymore. Sure. So it's a bit of a historical issue.
So for the most part, it's going to be either or. Raylan, now, I mean, this brings up the question, do I stop my RA? There could be penalties in place.
Yes, it really would have to look at each specific case. I mean, what we could do is we actually call up a thing called a servicing quotation that really will allow us to see exactly what the penalties would be on that specific retirement plan. Now, again, it really would depend if the person wants to continue to contribute to that retirement plan or to possibly transfer that amount of money, possibly into an endowment plan, unit trust, ETF, something like that, which is something that is after-tax money that goes into it, but your proceeds will obviously come out mostly tax-free, depending on what structure you go into. The other concern, though, is that money that goes into any kind of a retirement fund, pension fund, provident fund, that money is not being taxed, or the growth is not being taxed within that fund, which obviously gives you a slightly better return than what you would be getting, for example, on an endowment plan.
But in this instance, I mean, this is an RA pension fund, so that should be an equal scenario.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm just saying if he has to stop that contribution going into the RA and possibly look at other vehicles. So it's just things to be taken into consideration.
So if he's going to do that and it is for a pension fund, then we're sort of on a squared off type scenario. What I want to have a quick look at, Harry, is there's been quite a lot of regulatory changes that have come about in terms of retirement vehicles, how they're taxed, how they're seen, and certainly some good news for those invested in retirement annuities or retirement funds in general. Could you just give us a broad overview?
The first big change which happened last year is any retirement fund money on death is now free of estate duty. That's from 1 January 2009. And that makes an RA almost an estate planning shelter. Instead of setting up a trust, some of our clients, and again, you can't compare an RA to a trust, of course, I'll get into trouble for saying that. Yeah. But some of our clients have got, say, a single premium they want to invest, and just that little amount of money, they want to ensure there's no estate duty. An RA is then just as efficient as a trust because it actually takes it out of their estate. And of course, by setting up a trust, you'd have to do an interest-free loan, and you've still got some loan value or loan account back in your estate. Where with an RA, it's totally out of your estate.
Yes.
That's issue number one. The other big issue, number two, is now on death with an RA, the full proceeds can be paid out to the family or the dependents. Where of course, in the old days, we had that premiums plus 7% and those formulas. So, I mean, just a quick case. We had a case last month where an 84-year-old wanted to invest 3 million rand with us. But his big issue, when he died, he wanted his family to get all the money. Now, after the changes last year, we put that into a single premium RA. We gave him a tax shelter, And when he dies, his family can get all the money out the RA because of the rule changes. And there's no executor's fees either because it's not now part of his estate for distribution purposes. So RAs have become very attractive vehicles to an extent for those planning for retirement or even post-retirement now because of all the shelters they offer.
Okay, so from a taxation point of view, it seems that SARS and the taxman and perhaps even the finance minister are giving a clear message there that he wants to encourage South Africans to go there.
Exactly.
Andrew, I mean, we've seen year on year the increases in pension pension grants from the state have increased way below inflation, and for many commentators have said that this is a clear indication from the finance minister that he's saying, I'm not going to go too much in terms of taking care of you into retirement. It's up to you. I'm giving you the tax breaks. I'm giving you a lot of even in-fund tax breaks. It's now up to you to make the commitment and try as far as possible to look after yourself.
Yeah, I mean, part of any government's plan is there are a variety of pillars in terms of social support for the country and for their individuals. But one of those pillars is generally a tax incentive for people to actually be encouraged to save. And there is some debate about whether that tax incentive always works very well. And certainly, if you look at a lot of countries, certainly Western countries, where tax incentives generally do exist, and yet savings rates have been almost zero or in some cases negative. So in general, there is some debate that these tax incentives might not work as well in terms of encouraging people to save. But nonetheless, they are there, and very much people are being encouraged to save as much as possible.
Yeah. And I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk about retirement reform. We know very, very little about it. But certainly hearing from the National Treasury just a couple of weeks ago, the fiscal is not there to support what they're wanting to support in terms of the different social structures and whatever going forward. We've already got 15 million people living off the estate and their taxes from taxpayers. Rayland, I mean, just in closing, really, it seems to me that if someone's going to do this correctly, there's a couple of key ingredients. Start early, invest properly, and then discipline comes into it.
Yes. People need to really be putting away money on a constant basis. I mean, every little bit really does start counting. Using your tax breaks, it starts making a lot of sense going forward, because now effectively for every rand that you're putting in, whatever your tax bracket is, you're getting that back from SARS. So that does make it an attractive option. Again, we've already mentioned that there's no tax within the actual portfolios, so it does make a lot of sense as well. The other concern, though, as well, that people need to take into consideration is that if they do come out of pension or provident funds and they cash that money in, the tax rules have changed in terms that you only get the first 22,500 rand tax-free. Now, what happens is that if you, for example, take 100,000 rand out of a fund, you effectively are losing out on a tax-free benefit you could be getting at retirement age. Right now, you can get 300,000 rand out tax-free at retirement age, subject to any previous withdrawals that you've taken. Now, if you've taken that 100,000 rand out, you now effectively only have 200,000 rand left tax-free, and you only got 22,500 rand tax-free within that 100,000 rand. So it's really important that people really sit with their advisors and don't just make rash decisions in terms of, well, I need a bit of cash now to try and sort out some debts. Rather look at the long-term plan and know that saving long-term obviously has a huge effect and a compound interest effect, which really will get you to retirement age, and you can actually have a good retirement.
Well, there we go. Rayland, Andrew, Harry, thank you so much for your time and sharing of expertise tonight. I think it's been very informative, and I'm sure the viewers have enjoyed it. Before we go, it's time for a quick look at our weekly viewers' tips. This week, of course, our tips relate to pre-retirement planning.
Welcome to FinLogic's viewers' tips on retirement planning. The most important advice that I can give you is start now. It is never too early, and the longer you wait, the more it will cost you. Start by getting a plan. Consult with a FinLogic financial advisor to accurately calculate what income you will need in retirement, taking all factors into consideration, such as inflation, compound interest and growth, as well as your personal budget and affordability. An advisor can also help you to take advantage of the numerous tax breaks available to you. Remember, if you can only afford a small saving now, the longer the money is invested, the more it will work for you. Beef it up. Discipline is key. Invest any spare cash you have. If you get a bonus, overtime or commission, force yourself to pay a percentage to your retirement plan as additional savings. Every bit counts. Whenever you get an increase or promotion, immediately allocate a large percentage for your retirement before you start spending it on upgrading your lifestyle. Don't invest in funds that are too conservative, as inflation will deplete your earnings. The younger you are, the higher the risk you can afford to take. Don't touch your retirement savings. If you have a pension or provident fund, make sure that you preserve it when you leave a company. You can't afford to lose any retirement savings. It will set you back for years. If you are funding your retirement through alternative plans which are accessible, such as endowments, unit trusts, ETFs, or any other investments, don't cash them in. Even if it seems like a small amount now, you can't afford to lose out on the value of compound interest. Thank you for joining us, and remember, the best way to close your gap between your retirement expectations and reality is through effective planning.